you may have to just collaborate some of the information for this, your item one.
Okay, fantastic. Mark, I did want to mention,
Yes.
The one, the point, it was the Narcoossee.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
that's item 4.
There was an item about the IT costs were not included.
Yeah, that's what Sarah,
But we did get that information to.
It's not gonna be until Mr. Muller.
and they're gonna talk about that today. Rhonda is presenting that item. And Sarah brought it up only because she wanted to make sure that he's approved for enough dough to get it done this summer. And you're right, in this estimate, what she noted is it excludes IT, but her point was make sure you include IT and FF&E, so I can fund the whole enchilada. Thank you.
I am very concerned about the
Yeah, we need to get moving forward. So, yeah, Rhonda, maybe you mentioned that, when she presents, or that those POs down the road, and the same thing. Very cool. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Especially with all the lead times we've been seeing for COVID-related, logistic challenges.
Yeah. It's getting a little better, actually, but
respectful of everybody's time. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Clinch. Hi,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. Happy New Year. We have 4 items that we'll be presenting on today. And from these, I think you'll see that our new year is off to a fast start. Very exciting items coming for our school district and our facilities department. So those 4 items that we'll be presenting on today are the Point Siena High School Network Cabling Project. We're going to provide a summary of RFQs and major bidding, Army Corps and DEP permitting, talk about that a little bit, and the sites that are affected by those. And we'll land with the Narcoossee Elementary School Relief Plan. So first, Point Siena High School Network Cabling. This is a project that came to us by our IT department, and really the emphasis, the driver for this project was the deployment of the one-to-one technology. And because of the condition and the extent of infrastructure at Point Siena High School, there was concern that that existing infrastructure would not support the one-to-one deployment, specifically the bandwidth concerns. So we initially looked at a full project where we would upgrade the MDF, which is the main distribution facility, and the IDFs, which are the intermediate facilities as well as the cabling and other components related to the IT. So early on, the concern was being able to complete that entire project last summer. And as you're aware, we were affected by various COVID delays, long lead, specifically with IT equipment. So the emphasis became, okay, let's do a smaller piece of this project so that we can complete that project this summer and be successful in our one-to-one deployment of the technology. Unfortunately, due to availability of materials, those continuing long lead times and resources, we were not able to complete that project last summer. But fortunately, our IT department was able to go into that school and do some interim things so that they could successfully deploy the one-to-one technology. There was some trepidation that those temporary provisions, whether they would work or not, but fortunately they did. And our IT department was able to successfully launch the one-to-one technology deployment at Point Siena. However, we are still limping along, so to speak, in that we still need to do this upgrade project at Point Siena High School. So rather than that initial smaller phase that we were going to do, we are now reverting back to the entire scope of that project. So that smaller phase for some work in the MDF, and now to do the entire project, all of the work in the MDF, as well as the IDFs and other support structures, we are now looking to amend that project budget from $1 million to $3 million. And keep in mind that the $3 million, the full project, that was what was originally anticipated, but we were trying to develop a plan so that we could do a quick deployment. However, because of those logistical issues, we were not able to do so last summer. But again, we were able to incorporate some temporary provisions so that we could, what I will call, limp through to where we are today. But now we are looking forward to going forward with the full component of that project. The other challenge with this, or opportunity, is that now that we are going above the $2 million, we do have to go out with a CCNA, which is the Competitive Contractor Negotiation Act. For any continuing CM, Florida statute was increased in 2020 from $2 million to $4 million. And I'll talk about that a little bit further with some other projects that are going to be affected in our upcoming RFQs. But we we are required to go out with the CCNA because this project the construction will be above 2 million. So we are asking for approval to amend the project budget, and that would occur during the next cycle in our budgeting process. Ms. Graber is available to answer any questions how that might work.
Is this coming from capital eventually? Okay.
Yes.
And what's the scale? So I know that we're doing a, it's cabling. What is the difference in the work scope between the 1 million and the 3 million?
So originally, we were gonna split this into two pieces. Because of the amount of fees that are being charged for both, it just made more sense to put it back into one again. So we didn't wanna have to spend fees twice.
Okay.
So we look back, what we did over the summer before the one-to-one hit, we had a number of CTE labs that we had to rewire temporarily for Cat 6A, so that the CTE labs would run properly as far as devices connected. So that was the Band-Aid that we did for right now. In the older buildings at Poinciana High School, we have Category 5 cabling, which just is not, that's just not gonna work for us in this modern time, so we gotta go to 6A, and that's an expensive proposition. And we have to adjust the main distribution frame and the intermediate frames throughout the school to handle that. So that's basically the scope change and the scope increase of that project.
In fact, if
Mr. Clinton
we would have
said-
done just the initial project, the 1 million, there would have actually been some throwaway costs. So by doing the entire project, we avoid those throwaway costs as well. So it's a much
Hundreds of
more
thousands of dollars.
efficient project.
So that's the plan right now. So and we're gonna take capital from 2 other middle schools to help cover that cost. So from Horizon Middle School and Kissimmee Middle.
Okay. And, sorry, board, I just started asking questions without asking you first. I apologize for that. Are there any other schools in the background that you see that will have to, okay, you don't have to give me the list now. I don't know if any of the other board members are interested, but I would be interested to know what are the other schools that would need to have this kind of.
List, which I can provide to Dr. Pace, and we'll get to the board. There are definitely 2 middle schools that I just mentioned. Kissimmee Middle needs to be addressed as well as Redistricting.
Okay,
And we had developed a plan a couple of years ago to address these schools over a period of time. And then, of course, one-to-one hit and, that project. So we're having to accelerate some of that to get that done. So we put Band-Aids in place in different places to handle the load. Now, it's true that most of the devices are connected wirelessly, so we're able to address those, so that's a good thing. But there are labs throughout the district that are wired that need to be addressed, and that's where the cabling comes in. And we have to have that infrastructure in place to handle that load.
okay. Have we thought about training for the students, since now they're going to be more connected to the internet, just like we have with our staff, training for like cybersecurity and all of that? Is there something in place for that? Or have we thought about it?
Yes, we have thought about that. I mean, New York City, has processes in place for that. There's like test labs and things of that nature.
Okay,
So yes, we've thought about that. As far as training for the staff, of course, we have a new department that's just handling those issues internally. But you're referring specifically to students being trained in that area. So yes, he had thought about that.
okay. Let me know how those conversations go. Thank you. Board, I apologize again for jumping in, asking questions. Do any of you guys have any questions?
Mr.
Yeah.
Melendez is on the.
Mr. Melendez, can we hear him or?
Yes.
Okay, I guess someone will let me know if he has any questions. All right, thank you. Thank you, team.
Be careful what you ask for.
We want questions,
Okay, well, thank you, board. So as a result of those discussions, we'll plan to amend the budget from the million to the 3 million as part of our normal budgeting process. Thank you. We'll now move on to the second item, and this is an informational item. This is our summary of RFQs and bidding that we have coming up. As I mentioned, we're starting off 2022 with a bang, very exciting. We have, as you can see, several RFQs that are teed up to go out. We currently have 2 on the street. We have the Transportation East design. You'll be seeing that recommendation come to you soon for the designer. And we just completed the shortlisting for the Healthy Way Oxa Bus Road. So we'll be doing those oral presentations next week. So that being said, we have several others that we will need to support those design RFQs. And that includes the K8BB Poinciana Knightsbridge area, the CM for it, and the K8CC Wesleyan Park Sunbridge area CM. In fact, the Sunbridge CM will be the next one to go out. We'll be getting that to our procurement department this week, and right behind it, the Knightsbridge CM, because we have both of those designs already in process. The Sunbridge design started in September, and we just started the design process for the Knightsbridge in December. So we want to get CMs assigned so we can get the benefit of their input during the design process, as well as other pre-construction services, providing cost estimating, life cycle cost analysis, and those types of things. So the Transportation East, as I mentioned, that designer will soon be awarded. So we'll be following up behind those 2 CM, the K8 CMs, with the Transportation East. With the Transportation West, we are currently resolving our final access issues with Toho Water. We anticipate to have those resolved by March 8th. So that will allow us to move forward with that design RFQ. And then right behind that, we would want to go forward with the CM RFQ for that one as well. So the other last item that's listed is the West Side K8 kitchen and serving line renovation. So if you recall, we had 5 of those projects planned for this coming summer. But because of the S&S distribution challenges that we had, we backed off on initially 3 of those projects. So we're postponing 3 of those projects until next summer. And the plan was to continue forward with 2 of those. We've since been advised by School Nutrition Services that because of funding, the situation of their current funding, that they've asked that we back off on the Kissimmee Elementary or postpone it to next summer as well. So the one remaining is the West Side K. However, with various cost increases that we've seen, primarily with the kitchen equipment, which is long lead, we are now approaching the 2 million mark, which means that we'll have to take that out for CC&A for the continuing CM. We will not be able to use the continuing CM that allows us to utilize that delivery mechanism up to 2 million. Now that it is approaching 2 million or above, we're going to have to put that out for a CC&A where construction management firms compete for that.
But that's school policy, right? Sorry, Madam Chair.
No, I actually, Mr. Clinch, I was just gonna ask you to stop there because you do have a question, so I wanted to make sure we got to that before the next project.
Yes, sir, that's a great question. The 2 million is a school board policy. Back in July of 2020, the Florida statute was increased from 2 million to 4 million. And in fact, all of our neighboring school districts, Lake and Mr. Sharma did a little bit of research on this earlier this week. Lake, Volusia, Polk, Orange, and I believe Brevard as well. Our neighboring school districts have gone to the higher 4 million. Now, we've had those discussions with our finance department and our legal counsel, and our current plan is to increase that statutory limit to go to the current statutory limit, the 4 million, which would require us to revise our board policy as well, the next time that we go out for our continuing CMs. So we would raise that from 2 million to 4 million. Currently, the first term expiration is September of 23. So we're still a ways off. And you know, the challenging part with this is every time that we do a CCNA, that involves that we do a shortlisting process and oral presentations, where these firms that are interested in pursuing that work have to submit RFPs, requests for proposals. So it is cost for them, but there are 7 staff members that sit on our CCNA. So it's a good amount of staff time that we tie up. And as you can see from the list here, with all the other CCNAs that we have upcoming, you know, we're hoping that we can go to that higher Florida statute limit soon. In addition to this West Side KA, now those other 4 SMS projects that were previously postponed are starting to inch up towards the 2 million. So we, you know, with our current board policy limiting us to the 2 million, we will likely have to go forward with CCNAs for those as well. We also have a Harmony High School space reconfiguration project that is now inching closer to the 2 million. Originally, that project was estimated around 1.2, 1.3. However, there's been additional HVAC issues that have been identified to the tune of $500,000 to $600,000. And I did share this with Dr. Pace, and we've been working very closely with our design team. They feel very confident that we can keep that project below the 2 million and that it would not trip the CCNA. But the catch-22 here is that this is a project that we're trying to complete this summer. So when you interject the CCNA process, you're adding a minimum of 2 months to the process. So another reason why we are being very watchful to keep that space reconfiguration project well below the 2 million so that we're compliant with our current board policy that limits us to the 2 million for construction.
Thank you, Dr. Pace.
Madam Chair, on behalf of Mr. Melendez, he had a question regarding the welding building at OTEC. What was the total cost on that?
At current, we're just over 2 million. So this is a project that, because of timeline and trying to get that project completed, we were attempting to be very cautious in keeping that construction cost to below 2 million. And that was working pretty well until we had a structural issue. As a result of the RFQ that was put out, that we wrote the scope for, we did not identify that this building, what the use would be of this building. If we would have identified it as a heavy industrial use, the bidders would have known that, would have been able to identify the need for the higher point loading of the roof. And the reason that is because the majority of utilities are suspended from the roof. And with a welding program, as you can imagine, there's a good amount of electrical power, HVAC, and other things that need to be supported from the roof. So when we ultimately procured the building, it was assumed by the bidders that it was an open warehouse and not meeting the requirements, the point load requirements, to suspend all those utilities from the roof. So as a result, we had to go out with an additional hard bid so that we could do the structural modifications. Since that challenge, we have worked through the hard bid. We do have a successful bidder on board. It's actually the same CM that did the base project, so that's good from a coordination standpoint. And they have purchased, they bought out their steel prior to the holidays, so we're waiting for the lead times. As that material arrives, they will go to work with making the point load structural corrections and moving forward with the project with expectation to complete that project this summer in time for students in the fall.
Thank you. Mr.
Is it right at 2.2? Mark, I just want to
I
make sure that we address
believe
Mr.
2.2,
Melendez's question.
2.3, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't have the exact number, I'm sorry. I don't
We
want to
can,
throw out
Mr. Melendez, we'll make sure that you get that.
Okay.
Mr.
ma'am.
Boss?
Hey, Mark, just a real quick question. I think a lot of these, you've mentioned the rising costs, and I'm seeing it in my, because I deal with builders all the time, something as simple as PVC pipe, you know, where they used to get it at 9 cents a foot, now having to spending 40 and 50, 60, 70 cents a foot. But I think a lot of those costs are, I won't say artificial, but there's a slack in the chain, supply chain. So at some point, those prices are going to have to start coming down. I mean, when our economy slowly catches back up and we get the ships in from overseas. So my question is, I assume that we monitor this continuously. So when those prices do fluctuate, coming back down in our favor, we're on top of it, you know.
Yeah, we've actually seen the pricing level out just a little bit, but we don't anticipate that construction costs will come down to the period prior to COVID. They will still remain higher than what we had previously been seeing. So, that being said, we need to account for the escalation accordingly. And one of the exercises that we're working on with Sarah is to review or to revisit project budgets that had been established prior to COVID to make sure that we have properly escalated those to reflect current market conditions.
It's a good question. That's actually, I was gonna ask something along those lines as well, is how much of the cost increase is due to logistics and materials? I don't know if you have those numbers, but I guess knowing that you're gonna work with Sarah and including that
Yes.
in the new project estimates is good. With regards to changing our board policy, I have two dates, so I just wanna kind of clear that up. You mentioned that if we decide to move to the higher end in our board policy, that would be done in the next board
Yeah,
full
that would
cycle,
actually
or?
be done as part of the reappointment of the continuing CM. And
That's
currently,
2023.
those contracts, the first term expiration is September of 2023, so we're still a ways out for that.
What prevents us from doing that earlier?
Yeah,
If we did it prior, we would have to re-advertise those continuing CM contracts so that we could reflect that higher statutory limit.
okay. And help me understand what the pain points would be in doing that.
From my standpoint, I would like to see that we do that from an efficiency standpoint because of the CCNA process, whereby, a lot of projects or a good amount of projects end up at that 2 to 4 million. And anytime that we have a project that is close to 2 million at current, we have to do a CCNA, which involves, that process, that additional process that we have to work through, where we pull a selection committee together, where we have the firms submit their RFPs, and that adds a minimum of 2 months to our process.
So in your opinion, we should be moving towards a 2 million,
Yes, ma'am.
increasing the threshold sooner rather than later, understanding that we would have to go ahead and re-advertise some of the current projects that are out, is that correct? But
That's
your-
correct, yes, ma'am.
in your
In my
opinion, that is
professional
worth it?
recommendation, I would recommend
Mhm.
that we do that sooner than later. Now, of course, we have these RFQs that we have to get caught up on, and I think this needs to be the focus
Mhm.
at current. But as we get caught up, we catch our breath, then we look at that as a next step.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Mr. Melendez has another question. Mr. Melendez, you can go ahead and try to ask it. We should be able to hear you. Hello? His question is, now, yes, now we can.
From the heavens.
Okay, yeah, because the concern was, right now, one, because I know OTEC, when they're building the welding building there, or if you want to call it a wing or an addition, or whatever the terminology is, to me, in my mind, that is the smallest unit of something that we build, that's like a complete project. And so when something is a complete project, that is when the CCNA, I believe, should be triggered. Because if we're like modifying the cafeteria kitchens, then yes, that doesn't really need to be CCNA. But so to me, the proper question is, what is the smallest amount of money that we would use to actually build a complete building? And wherever that amount of money is, because I understand that inflation and labor costs change over time, we can revisit that, then I believe that is the appropriate amount of money to establish as a minimum for CCNA.
Yes, sir. So at current, we're held to our board policy of 2 million. And any time that we get around 1.9 million, we make the conscious decision to go forward with the CCNA so that if some unforeseen issue arises in the construction costs, then we have it covered and we don't at a later time have an audit issue to deal with. But what I'm recommending is that we go to the 4 million, which is now the new Florida statute limit, so that we can have being able to avoid the time and effort associated with all those CCNAs that we have to do that we're currently seeing around 2 million.
But Mr. Melendez's question is what is the average cost of a wing? I know that varies depending on how many classrooms, what we're gonna put in it.
Sure.
But for example, the last wing that we built in the high school, the Business Academy.
Sure. Yeah, that total project cost reconciled at 9.2 million. That was a 20 classroom.
It's not the minimum that's at issue here, it's the maximum that you constantly go above, right? So I mean, $4 million is the minimum essentially, where it's either a huge project or $4 million would be the realistic threshold upon which most of our projects fall under on a daily basis, as opposed to building a new school,
Correct.
right? So I mean,
You know, we're trying to build some efficiencies into the process as we move forward.
are these GMPs, are these GMPs now, are we not doing that anymore?
Yeah, we do GMPs, so everything is competitively bid by our construction managers.
So even on something like that building, I guess that's so material that it would have left us exposed for the welding building, for example.
Well, the challenge that we had with the welding building is we procured it as a school district. It's something that we had attempted to do before, and we thought we had struck a huge victory by breaking the code, how to purchase a pre-engineered building, and we did. I mean, that was a huge victory, and it's now something in our arsenal as we move forward. And we were able to get this pre-engineered building at rock bottom pricing. It's a building that was sitting in the yard, and the various pre-engineered building manufacturers were looking to unload that freight from their yards. So we did get it at a very competitive price. Unfortunately, it did not meet the wind load requirements that were required for an industrial use.
Yeah, but we kind of hashed all this over last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And, with the structural modifications, we would have seen that cost in the original construction for the point loading.
Am I seeing some head nods or consensus from the board that you would not be opposed to us bringing forward a change during our next policymaking cycle? I mean, this isn't a vote, obviously,
Yeah.
it's just kind of, and certainly the board would have time to review that. The public would have time to review it because we go through the public hearing process. That is something that if you're willing, then the team would appreciate the increased efficiency while maintaining a level of competition and an open bid process that we can say to our public, we're still getting a good bang for our buck.
Understood? Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that guidance. Okay, moving on. So our upcoming major project bids, we currently have two large projects that are up to bid. Gateway High School Comprehensive Renovation. And with each of these projects, we're doing a minimum of 2 outreach events. And that's to expand the number of bids that we get on bid day. So we can get a lot of interest out in the market, a lot of excitement for various subcontractors to bid our projects. So with Gateway High School, we completed our our first, and actually we have our second outreach event tomorrow. The first event was very successful, lots of subcontractors in participation. So we are currently out to bid, and our bid opening is January 25th. So we will soon be bringing a GMP forward to the board, probably the first part of March for that GMP. So we're ready to move forward with our next comprehensive renovation. And I'm sorry, that anticipated GMP board award date is actually April. So when on bid day, the first activity they do is what's called shaking out the bids to make sure there's no duplication, to make sure that the scope has been captured in the projects, that there's a full accounting of the construction that's required. And then we work through negotiating those costs with our construction manager. We also look at general conditions and general requirements. General conditions is the labor that's required for the CM to man those projects. So all of those components are negotiated, and each subcontract bid is competitively bid. So the hope is, for example, your large bids like electrical, mechanical, tilt, that we have a minimum of 3 bidders in each of those categories. So that process is moving forward, as is the Celebration Island Village area elementary school. We are also moving forward with it. We have our second bid outreach event tomorrow. And our first outreach event last week, we had, I believe, 44. So we're seeing some good participation with our bid outreach events. And this is a really good time for subcontractors to pursue work. They're looking to fill their dance cards for the upcoming summer. So there's a lot of subcontractors out there that are hungry, that are looking for work. So hopefully that will help to increase the competitiveness for those bids. And the bid opening on that project is January 18th, and we anticipate a GMP board approval also on April 5th on that project. Okay, now moving on to our summary of Army Corps of Engineer and Department of Environmental Protection permitting. The big news with this item is that over the last 12 months, the Army Corps of Engineers has relinquished their permit review requirements, and they have turned over those requirements to the Department of Environmental Protection, the DEP. Unfortunately, DEP at this time is not equipped to do those permit reviews. At last count, 2 weeks ago, there were over 54,000 permits in queue for review. So that being said, anything that involves wetland mitigation, Army Corps, DEP permitting is significantly backed up. And this is affecting projects across our state. So with that, I'm going to go through various projects to identify the level of risk that we have in relation to permitting. The first project that I wanted to talk about is a project that we are currently working through the selection for our designer for the Healthy Way Osceola Bus Road. And this project is to correct an SREF deficiency where at current we're not able to separate our bus and car traffic. So this would provide a backdoor to that school site. And in order to do that, a road would be built across the Tupperware property. And as part of a tri-party agreement with Tupperware, Deerfield Land Corporation, the Osceola County, and the school district, Tupperware is donating 2.98 acres for the construction of the Osceola Bus Road. That's great. The challenge with that is it bisects a very wet area. It is identified as a conservation easement. And we're hoping that we can dodge our impacts with Army Corps permitting by doing essentially a land swap. where we would mitigate other areas on the school property so that we could then take this property for the construction of the Oxa Bus Road. So that is our plan moving forward for this project in order to keep this project on schedule and not being impacted by Army Corps permit.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what you're saying is, because I'm looking at the rendering here, and I clearly see that the route is gonna go over some kind of body of water. What you're saying is, we were going to use that, but determine another wetland within the property to
Yeah,
take care of that
exactly.
conservation.
Right, the fringes of the property, and if you can see the athletic field, you can see where the wetlands come up to just short of that those athletic amenities. We would possibly be looking to mitigate those areas in exchange so that we could take the wetlands for the Oxa Bus Road. My pointer isn't working on this, so, but this is the road that runs through the wet areas, the wetlands. And here is the identified wetlands here, but there's a
Got it.
fringe here where we can possibly mitigate this collar of property so that we can do a land swap with this existing conservation easement.
Thank you. Would anybody else
Okay,
have any
moving
questions?
on, our next project. These are, this is our next K-8 at Knightsbridge. And as you can see from this, this diagram, there are 5 wetlands delineated on this site. So what we intend to do is to build the roadway, building, and athletic amenities outside of those wetlands. Our current test fit, as you can see, this building here, which is our gymnasium building, clips this wetland right here. So we're going to fine tune those building alignments so that we can stay out of those wetlands. And by doing so, we're trying to eliminate Army Corps permitting altogether on this project. So we would be limited to South Florida Water Management District permitting only.
Mr. Clinch, I like the solution. I don't like this piece of property, you know? Shouldn't we be, making, first of all, it's gonna be on this main road, which is gonna contribute to traffic, which people hate. They're gonna build neighborhoods all in there. They're gonna be waiting for 20 minutes to get their kids in school. This looks like another Poinciana, standard operating procedure of creating traffic, never resolving it, and just, dumping on the community, so to speak, in Poinciana,
Let me address you, that's a fair question. So first, we looked at several other properties, and this was the best candidate
Wow.
for that K-8. Second, as far as the access, we are not accessing directly onto Poinciana Boulevard. There's a spine road that will come off of Poinciana Boulevard, will go into the Knightsbridge subdivision. That is where our bus loop and car loop will be located off. So we will not be affected.
They're gonna complain about that too, right?
Yeah, right. So, but the trick with that is we need to provide adequate on-site stacking so that even when we spill out onto the public right-of-way on that spine road, that our vehicles are not stacking on Poinciana Boulevard. And we are taking efforts on our next round of projects, Celebration Island. We increased the on-site capacity, Sunbridge K-8, and we will do the same on Knightsbridge to increase the on-site capacity. Previously, we were looking at about 11%, and now we're looking more in the order of 20% on-site stacking. That is a significant addition of on-site stacking.
And Mark, quick question, and I'm gonna echo with John. I've never cared for the property, but That's why we tried to reach out to Disney, and we tried to, in the very beginning, try to find a property across the street that wouldn't have that. But anyways, that's all behind us. But now, Rhonda, they're building the apartment complex that will be abutting this. And you were saying, once that apartment building, that's pretty much going to fill this, put the capacity into the school, right? The county's project for the affordable housing. So I'm just wondering, will that lessen the amount of car traffic if they're gonna be walking from there to school?
So Osceola County is building or proposing to build their Sunrail Master Plan development immediately to our south, in addition to a couple other little smaller infill communities. And then we'll have Lennar building at the end of the street, the actual Knightsbridge community. Immediately north of the Spine Road, Mr. Sabetti will be building his multifamily. And then directly across the street is Cypress Hammock Phase 1 and Phase 2. So pretty much the school will fill by all of the surrounding development. In the perfect world, we hope they walk. We can look at some communities, and the walking communities will internally create our own traffic flow. But
Now,
in
all
the
of these
beginning, it'll be a highly bus school, but as the county builds the Sunrail Master Plan multifamily community, the busing kids will have to be bused to somewhere else because it should become a walking school.
So it should, because all those projects you're talking about are within the 2-mile radius.
They're adjacent to the property.
They're adjacent, so that you won't have as much busing
In the long term.
in the,
And the
in the long
immediate
term.
future,
But in the long-
they'll
right,
be
I understand.
busing in, but long term, it should become a walking school.
I'm trying to look for some kind of ray of hope,
So-
that's all.
Yeah.
Anything.
So
But I just don't want everybody to think that short terms in 3 to 5 years, somewhere in 7 to 10, it'll become a walking school.
I see.
But it will not be in the first 2 or 3 years of when we open.
But in 10 years, we're gonna have to build a school we are gonna have to build a school across the street.
Yeah.
And we're behind the curve, right, in all sense. So is this because there's so much wetland spread throughout, right? We're not mitigating it so that we don't have to do something else. Is this gonna be like a pest and mosquito infested, mold infested building that, Yes.
I don't love that pause.
I'm not a entomologist, but, I would tend to think that as long as we meet those upland setbacks, it's no different than what we did at Harmony Middle School. And I think that site came out really well. If you recall with Harmony Middle School, that is a project that was advanced 1 year. And we walked out of here, running to get through the permitting. And we took, we met in person with the Army Corps of Engineers. And the following week, after the board approval, or the board direction to move forward, and we took a very conservative approach, but we did preserve a wetland that is encircled by the bus loop. The Army Corps was very complimentary of the approach that we took for that site to preserve that wetland. And I think that site works out really well. We're meeting the upland buffers. I haven't heard of any issues with, pest mosquito control. Osceola County is known to be low-lying. The properties that are remaining are not the ideal properties. And we have to purchase the properties that are available where we need to relieve schools. That's the simple fact. And, so those pristine properties are not out there anymore. And, we look at multiple properties. When we site a school, of course, we have to look at the attendance zones, the statograms to see where we need a school, where we need that relief. So, we're not able to always go to a pristine property that's 10 miles away because it wouldn't meet our needs. So we look at, the best of all worlds.
Well, my good answer. Would never accuse you of ever cutting corners, but just be mindful of those sports fields. It just seems like everywhere you go, that's where they always seem to fall short on. There's always water standing in the outfield, or there's water on the ball fields, and it's always frustrating. At least that's what I've seen in the past. So just be
Yes, sir.
mindful, make sure you have plenty of drainage. on those-
You know, and one of the challenges we had, for example, Toho High School, we excavated retention ponds, and a lot of that material that was very hard pan
Right, I
material
know. I
ended
remember.
up on the fields. And we learned from that. You know, we went back, we installed a substantial under-drain system, and now as we move forward with our athletic amenities, we're doing more of those under-drain systems so that we can ensure that we don't have those standing water issues, that our grassroots remain dry so that they can grow and thrive. And also so that, you know, we can have the performance that we need at the fields.
Yeah, thank you.
Good
Thank you.
questions. Mark, I do have one additional question. This is going back to the walkability of the schools in general. So it sounds like we may have, and this question came up because of this school, but I'm really not asking specifically about this school. I'm asking about our population in general. It sounds like we do have a large portion of our student body that is able to walk, but are not walking. So when we're thinking about the loop, it's not just the buses that we're concerned about, it's also the cars that are using the, I guess the loops to drop off their kids. Do we have an idea of what percentage of parents or caretakers have the ability to have their children walk to school but are not using that option?
As far as district-wide
Yeah.
averages, we worked on a recent exercise.
We actually, this goes to Chairman Sue, we actually did work with Osceola Engineering and surveyed at each school. We have given them some data to share with you
Yeah.
to help us determine what percentage of each school is actually driving in.
Yeah.
We didn't really look at should they be driving or should they be riding bus or walking. We just did some data collection to see what percentage was actually driving in.
Can we extract that, the data specifically for the student body that is eligible, like within that 2 mile radius?
No,
Is
because
that,
we just did a standard counting of bodies. You have to actually go back and ask each school to review each one of their students and determine what their true method should be.
is that an extraneous process?
It wouldn't be easy, but it is
Okay.
possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our transportation facilities, east and west. To the left of the screen is the Nova Newman, the transportation east facility. As you're aware, this is a 110-acre site, which encompasses the transportation east to the south and the future high school site to the north. As you can see, there are wetlands located on that site. The good news is those are not within the transportation east footprint. So we believe that we will be able to avoid Army Corps permitting on this project as well. South Florida Water Management District permitting, provided that we contain the transportation east to the south part of that site. So that is looking in good shape. The next one is the transportation west, Avenue A. Quite honestly, this is the one that keeps me up at night. As you can see, encircled, we have wetlands that are plopped dead center in that site. And to be able to build the facilities to maintain our buses, as well as the parking for the 200 buses, we are going to have to take those wetlands. Now, what we are looking to do is to do a phased approach where we have a critical path schedule that runs through that project, through the design and the construction, so that we can construct early phases of construction while working around those wetlands until we have that Army Corps DEP permit in place. That is the plan moving forward. As I mentioned, we are currently working through our remaining access issues, and as that design RFQ goes out, that will be a very central theme for the selection of this project. How we work through the design and the construction while working around those existing wetlands so that we can complete this project in a timely manner while not being impacted by Army Corps permitting.
And Mark, given our current growth, I know Harmony and St. Cloud and possibly Toe are they're growing faster than expected. For the future high school site, how far out do you think it would be before we would consider building there?
Well, currently, we're not in our 10-year, but we suspect that that is going to change within the next 3 to 5 years. We do have some other relief sites that we're currently targeting before, and trying to, push that out as far as we can. But, even with the space reconfigurations, the portables that we do, and that's our next topic that we'll be talking about, we ultimately, when we get to that 110% utilization, that trips the relief school. So that's really where we have to be looking at our attendance numbers. And we monitor those. Our runners department monitors those very closely. They're doing that multiple times during the year to see what our growth is looking like so that we can properly anticipate for our relief schools.
Okay. Mark, on the Avenue A property, what size is that?
The Avenue A is 64, I think 49 usable. So as you can see, the whole backside is wetlands. Actually, it was interesting reviewing the geotechnical information. They noted that there's a couple of deer stands back there too. So I found that interesting.
I was thinking the same thing. That little dark polygon there, that's a body of water?
It's not a body of water, but it's very wet. For the most of the year, it's wet.
Is there a retention pond in it?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was referring to, I'm sorry. So I was referring to this. This is all wetland back here, and actually the deer stands are back here. This is a body of water. And we would look at, as part of our South Florida Water Management District, discharging storm water into that pond or creating new ponds. We attempt to get a letter mod so that we can modify that existing pond. That is our summary for Army Corps DEP permitting. As you can see, we're watching this very closely, and we'll now move forward with our last item, which is the Narcoossee Elementary School Relief Plan. I'm going to ask Ms. Rhonda Blake to rejoin us at the table to provide an update on this item.
Just wanted to give a brief update to student enrollment along the Narcoossee corridor. So we are looking at Narcoossee Elementary School. At the time of the snapshot for 21-22, their enrollment was 1278 plus 51 VPK for a total of 1329. They had 10 portables on their campus, and they were currently using 6 classrooms in a co-teach environment. For the 22-23 to 23-24 school year, for the upcoming school year, we anticipate they will reach 1,597 students. And for the 23-24 school year, we anticipate that they will reach 1,818. So a couple of things that have occurred here. So while we were monitoring the enrollment along Narcoossee, we were aware that the residential units were coming and the students were going to be there. But at the same time, 4 charter schools came into play. And from the top of Narcoossee Road down to Nora Tyson, and then just south on Hickory Tree, they all opened their doors. So as such, previous reviews were, it was too risky to build a school and have all the students go to the charter schools, and then we would have built a $35 million school that could literally be sitting vacant. So due to about 4,000 charter school seats being built, the decision was to wait, see the impact of the charter schools, and then make the necessary decision to readjust. So in monitoring that, what we've learned is the parents in the St. Cloud area do not seem to embrace charter schools to the same level that the parents in Kissimmee and South Kissimmee are embracing them. So those 4 charter schools have a significant number of vacant seats because the parents have chosen to keep their students in our school, which is complementary to us, but then it helped assist create this sudden impact of students that were projected to go into the charter schools. And then with the pandemic coming in to play with the virtual, and then tons of families coming in from the north and not really having a good grasp on how many were coming in because they were not all being 100% enrolled, we now have this excessive number of students coming in. We did reach out to Tavistock. The school in Tavistock was not slated until 2027. They took a hard look at their plans, and we actually tried to get them to bump it up to 2022, but due to permitting, South Florida Water Management, getting all their design and planning in through the county, the best they could bump it up was to allow us to start construction in the upcoming year and to be ready to open the school in 2024. So as such, we have to find a relief plan for Narcoossee Elementary School. So that has led us to find a need. We looked at several plans, and the plan that we have decided to move forward with will require us to install 16 classroom portables at Narcoossee Elementary, a restroom portable, and an administration/clinic/teacher support portables, and a cafeteria warming kitchen. For 22-23, it's by the end of the school year, the school could still be teaching 3 classrooms in a co-teach environment, even after the installation of the additional 16 portables. And then for the 23-24 school year, in addition to the portables we'll install this year, in the fall, we'll bring before you a redistricting plan to redistrict approximately 130 students from Narcoossee Elementary to Hickory Tree. We're just starting to look at the area that we will be proposing, but we do know that there'll be students that will be long-term, so we're not going to move them temporarily to move them again due to the opening of the Westland Park School at Sunbridge. So when we bring that recommendation to you in the fall, we will see them being long-term students to remain at Hickory Tree for more than 3 to 5 years. And then of course in 24-25, Westland Park will open, and at that point, we would anticipate all the portables would leave Narcoossee Elementary School. They would come down to well within the size that they have been designed to operate under, which will be much needed relief. And then on the next page, we are providing the estimates for the cost and the installation to bring the portables in, to set them up. It includes their annual lease. And as you can see, classrooms, depending on the type of the use of the portable, determines the type of the monthly lease. And right now we're looking at an estimated cost of year 1 for $1.1 million. And then year 2, you take out all the delivery and setup costs, and now you're looking at total lease costs. So we're looking at about $462,000 plus removal. And then we could create a small savings in the first 12 months if we didn't bring all 16 portables in. But we right now are moving forward with bringing the 16 portables in to allow some of those co-teach units to go back to single classrooms to provide some relief to Narcoossee for a year. What the cost does not currently include, we're waiting on the IT cost, and we're waiting on some FF&E costs, and we're waiting on the warming kitchen costs. And then on the next slide, we're just showing the layout provided to us by our maintenance department, and this would be the recommended layout. We have spoken to Mr. Noble on several occasions, and he very much supports this plan versus some of the other plans that we were reviewing with him. And he is in support of this plan and he understands and he does believe that he can accommodate all the students safely, securely, and continue on without any impact in the educational environment until the new school opens.
Is Sunbridge even gonna be large enough? I mean, it sounds like this, the way this growth is occurring, I mean, it's almost gonna, are we gonna open Sunbridge with portables?
No,
I
good
mean,
question. I do see Narcoossee falling back within its size, and we anticipate right now that Sunbridge will open probably at about 80%, so it won't take long. But we do have another school in Sunbridge that will be mitigated, and we also have the mitigated site down in Center Lake. So we'll kind of have to see based on their build-out plans who will trigger first. And then ultimately Sunbridge has a third school. So Sunbridge will have 3 K-8s, and then we have the K-8 on Center Lake. So we literally have 4 schools lined up on the
and
east side.
all of them are gonna be on Highway 15.
Well, remember that road network's gonna
I
come through
know,
there.
I know, but it's still, you know what's gonna, you know what it's gonna be like.
And then the Center Lake School will literally be about half a mile from the high school site, because the high school site will intersect with the Center Lake Road on Nova Road. And then when you go across, it'll be about a mile into Center Lake, and that's where the K-8 school site will be. And then just real quick for clarification for the high school site, we do think there'll be one within the 10-year window, and we do think there'll be a second high school just outside of the 10-year window based on the data that we're currently pulling in and getting ready to digest to share with the leadership team for our next 5-10-year plan. So we do see 2 high schools coming in pretty close.
It's incredible, okay.
I mean, for me, I think that this is a plan that probably should have been communicated to the community of that school. And there should have been more discussion before we put this plan into action. I think that there's time, but I think it's a totally appropriate thing to communicate with them what the situation and circumstances are of that community.
So I do know that we've been working with the schools since before Christmas. I mean, we have started working on this just a little before Thanksgiving. Based on the discussions, our other options were to take students away from the campus and locate them in satellite facilities on other surrounding campuses. And after a lot of discussion with both Mr. Noble and Mr. Whedon, the principal for Narcoossee Middle, we didn't want to move the parents to a satellite facility, separate their K-8s for 2 years, then move them to Sunbridge. So after a lot of heartfelt discussion, the team felt that it was best, and both principals felt it was best to keep the families together in the environment that they've known for many, many years, and only move them once to another K-8 in 2 years.
I may agree with you, but that's a parental philosophy, right? That we're not the parents of the community. They have a right to interact when these decisions are being made and to understand. And so, I mean, everyone should have had the opportunity to dispute those assumptions, right? I may agree with you, this may be the best plan because there's not a lot of great options. You know, you're balancing 2 things, but the community's right to have input isn't something, you know, we thought about it, we've made the correct decision for you, trust us. It's not a good way to approach the decisions of education for other people's children. Besides, satellite campuses under the current circumstances, right? Once we go through the whole Greek letter alphabet of COVID and who knows what happens, satellite campuses might be an even smarter idea to limit exposure to people in smaller groups, right? So it's just a matter of I'm of the philosophy of whenever we're gonna make changes like this, I think that we should involve the community and let them know what's going on.
You're absolutely right, sir. And, you know, we did look at a total of 4 options. We vetted those with the schools. And, you know, this is the option that we thought was gonna be least impactful, most beneficial to our school district. It is something that I'll say somewhat caught off guard. There have been several recent county approvals of major developments. And it's just a matter of that got a little bit ahead of us, more so than what we thought it would. We thought we had our bases covered. We didn't. I'll take the hit for that. We need to do a better job in the future, looking forward as we track our growth. And portables, adding portables is not an ideal situation. But I think the good news here is we have relief coming. And as Rhonda mentioned, with the Sunbridge site alone, we have 3 school sites that we're talking to Tavistock about. 3 K-8 school sites, another one in Center Lake. So the relief is coming. And I think that when we ultimately do the redistrictings, our previous redistrictings have been very successful because we have those open, candid discussions with the community then. And where the school and the community is involved in those discussions and always trying to put the positive, spin on this. Growth is painful. And I drive Narcoossee most every day and I've seen it just explode. I should have known that, we were gonna have to do something sooner. I drive that road most every day and I've seen that growth firsthand. But the flip side, it is just incredible what has happened here in Central Florida the last 2 years. Our population has swollen to the point where we are really having to move a lot of our plans forward. And I just, we will continue to work hard. You have our commitment that we're going to continue to work hard and try to stay on top of this growth. But Central Florida is expanding very quickly.
Yeah, I think that's a completely fair point. I know that we're caught in a reactionary, position right now. So I definitely don't want my tone to sound like I think that this is your guys' fault. I don't think it is. Really, for me, the only thing is that for me, the community decides, right? Everyone in here works for the community at large. It's not like we're just here, making decisions on behalf of somebody else in some kind of tyranny. It's really their job to be involved in this. And not everyone does anyways when they have the opportunity, but it's our job to voice and communicate. This is clearly not our fault. To me, this is the county's fault because they are in control of this and I don't think that they're forecasting. I don't know. I know that they drive Neptune Road too. They drive everywhere. They drive Narcoossee. They drive all these roads and they know what they're doing and they're still not reacting to a problem that they're creating. So
Hickory Tree Road, that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna disagree with him one iota because.
Well, 30 years on Poinciana or Pleasant Hill. So, at a certain point, we may be caught in a reactionary system, but that's why you communicate, if there's nothing that you can do, the best thing you can do is communicate what's going on, so. But thank you, Mark, I appreciate the
Yes,
frankness.
sir, thank you. And even with all the challenges we have with growth, we are very excited for that growth. We are so excited to move forward with these various projects. And you have our commitment that we're going to continue to work hard and provide the best possible product we can for our county.
I appreciate this.
Yeah.
And that concludes our update.
Dr. Pace, do you have any additional comments? Board?
No, ma'am.
Thank you so much, team. Very informative. I think this was productive. I appreciate your time. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to an end and we'll see you at 5:30.